Good morning, all. It is Monday, April 7th, and today's Daily Divas is Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I am um, one of those people that I carry a strong sense of self assurance in a lot of areas, but there are things I'm afraid of. And there are things that I show up for in spite of being afraid of. And a few years ago, my son was out at New Mexico Military Institute, and he was we were going to pick him up for winter break. And as we went to pick him up for winter break, we took a couple of extra days and we went over to Ruidoso, and we stayed at Inn of the Mountain Gods. And for those of you that know me, know I have a friend who she was adopted off of that reservation where Inn of the Mountain Gods is. So it was a unique experience to see all the people that looked just like my friend, right? And as we got into town, I saw Ski Apache, and I saw a sign that said Ski Apache this way. So I got all excited. I'd never been to a snow ski resort before. I've water skied all my life, but I've never been to a snow ski resort. So I asked my husband if we could go and see it. Now, as we were driving in that day, it was starting to get the snow clouds building up. It was December. The big puffy clouds were filling up. You were starting to get a few flurries. And when we checked into our hotel room at the Inn of the Mountain Gods, there was a beautiful green meadow and a lake and green going up the side of a mountain right outside of our window. The next morning when we woke up, it was all covered with white. It had snowed that hard and that heavy all night long. So I'm all excited. We're going to a ski resort. I've never been to a ski resort in my entire life. What I was thinking, I have no idea. But as we started to go down that road didn't go down. It went up. And it kept going up and kept going up. And we're in a Chevy Impala, right? It's a rental car. We're in a Chevy Impala. And I'm starting to have major freak out, like total panic attack. I am in the floorboard of the car, hugging onto the center console like this. I'm hugging onto the center console while I'm in the floor of the car. And we're about a quarter of the way up. And out of the top of my eye, looking up through the windshield, because I'm in the floorboard, I see another car hundreds of feet above my head. And of course, we're on these mountain roads. You can't turn around. There is no place to turn around. And I'm hyperventilating and I'm laughing at myself at the same time because I'm being totally ridiculous, right? I know I'm being totally ridiculous. But the fear had grabbed a hold of me so bad. I had mascara streaming down my face. My husband actually says that he was worried I was going to have a heart attack. I was that afraid. About halfway up, I see some people standing on the side of the road. I'm like, what the heck? Why are they standing on the side of the road? Who would get out? Oh, look, it's a lookout. Can we stop? My husband just looked at me like I was totally lost my mind. I had no problem being up there, looking out over the vistas, looking out over any of that, as long as my feet were on the ground. It was the fear was being in that car and driving those roads, right? Fast forward a few years later, we made it up the mountain that day. We made it to the ski resort. We made it back down the mountain, and I made it back to my hotel room to soak in a hot tub with a hot toddy that night. Yes, I had a hot toddy that night because I needed to calm my nerves, right? But a few years later, I found myself in Denver, Colorado. I was there for a business trip. And as I'm leaving, I'd driven up there because I'd never driven to Colorado before. I'd never been to Colorado before. I wanted to see the sights. So I finished my business trip in Denver, and I told my husband, I said, I think I'm going to go to Pikes Peak on my way out. And if you know my husband, he has such a delightful demeanor in how he says things, but he said, "You don't have a hair on your butt to drive up Pikes Peak." Well, if you know me, that was challenge accepted. Yeah, I drove to Pikes Peak. I drove all the way to the top. One of the things that happened as I was coming through the lower parts was there was a sign, and it was talking about some sort of race. And I didn't quite know what that meant. But apparently, there is this international race where people race their cars to the top of Pikes Peak. Well, that race had just ended, and I'm driving up the mountain, and all these car haulers, trucks with big car hauling trailers are coming back at me. So we would hit those hairpin turns at the same time. Talk about nerve-wracking, right? And I remember there's one point where I'm driving up the mountain and all I can see ahead of me is sky and sheer death to the right side of me, right? And I am freaking out. I can feel my hands starting to get a little tingly, and I'm driving. I'm by myself. I'm driving. But I promised myself I was going to overcome this fear, right? So I turn that last hairpin turn, and there's a group of cyclists up ahead. I'm driving this. They're on bicycles. Their faces are red and splotchy and breathing hard. Their legs are just working. We're at high elevation. They're doing everything they can. And in my fear of me trying to make it up the mountain, and now fear of please don't run over the bicyclists, I rolled down my window. And as I passed them, I was yelling at them, "You got this. You can do it. You're doing great. Keep going. Just a little further." See, to those cyclists, they thought I was talking to them. But what I was doing was I was cheering my own self on. I was building up my own courage. I was leaning not on my own self. I was leaning on them. I was leaning on my faith. I was leaning on anything that I had to lean on to get me to the top of that mountain. And so I got up to the top of that mountain and I took pictures. You better believe it. I even got me a little Pikes Peak medallion because it wasn't about getting to the top of Pikes Peak that was a feat for me. It was about overcoming the fear that had gripped me on the top of the mountain over at Ruidoso. And so I really needed to find a way to press in, to see what that fear was about. Because, a lot of the times the fear of the unknown keeps us from accomplishing what we truly want to accomplish. And so we get a little resistance to something and we get fearful of something and we pull back and we never accomplish the greater thing. And that greater thing is the thing that's going to propel you to the next thing that God has in store for you. So the challenge questions today go right along with Joshua 1:9. It says, what step of courage have you been putting off? For me, the step of courage of putting off has been pushing record, pushing the button to go live, to record video, to put my voice and personality out there. That's been my biggest fear. You're seeing me right now living out one of my biggest fears. And it all goes back to times where I've told that I sounded like a hick. I wouldn't amount to much. I'm, my voice is horrible, all sorts of things. And then I have people that tell me that I have an amazing voice. And I have people that tell me I have great charm. But the negative voices always seem to outweigh those positives. So I'm leaning into the positives and working on my craft and working on my speaking by pressing live every day here. Whether you're watching or not, I'm still working. And then how would your life change if you acted despite the fear. Let me tell you, there is a sense of accomplishment. When I went off into boot camp, I know that there was a lot of people that looked at me that thought I was super excited to go to boot camp. Let me tell you, I was a nervous wreck. I was hurt. I was angry. I was disillusioned. And I was a nervous wreck. But that sense of accomplishment of going through boot camp and everything they threw at me and overcoming and graduating boot camp and going to A school and accomplishing those things set me up for a greater level of success further down the road. So, what does it mean to you? The third question is, what does it mean to you that God is with you wherever you go? You know, I've talked about it before. I had a sexual assault while I served in the military. It is not lost on me that the street that I was on when that assault happened translates to the Sacred Heart of Christ. That was the name of the street that I was on when I was sexually assaulted. That's just a little Godwink to let me know that even in my darkest moments, God was there. All I had to do was lean on to Him. And so I want to challenge each and every one of you to do what you're afraid of. A friend and mentor once said, jump. If you've got a fear of jumping, jump and build your wings on the way down, right? I mean, take that leap of faith. It doesn't have to be necessarily a faith in you, but a faith that God's got you. So again, the verse is, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And that's Joshua 1:9. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing it in spite of the fear. And so this week here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we have the Medal of Honor host city caravan going through Wednesday afternoon from DFW up to Gainesville. So we've got the Medal of Honor Museum that just opened in Arlington, but every year Gainesville, Texas hosts the Medal of Honor recipients. There's right now, I believe, 61 living Medal of Honor recipients. These are people that had fear. They were afraid, but they pressed through anyway. And there may not be a medal for you on the other side of your fear, but there is a sense of accomplishment. There is a sense of purpose. There is a sense of peace when you push through that fear. So I challenge you and I encourage you, each and every one, to find a way to push through any fear you have today, to walk in courage and in faith that God's got you through this. So as a recap, our 3 challenge questions for the day is what step of courage have you been putting off? How would your life change if you acted despite the fear? And what does it mean to you that God is with you wherever you go? I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. And of course, if you want to discuss this further, you can join my Mischief. It's the Mischief Business Facebook group, or I've also got my Dinah's Defenders for Church Hurt or Till Heart Society for those of you that have been sexually assaulted while serving in the military. I look forward to connecting with you soon. Have a great day, and we will see you back tomorrow for another session